let's go straight to it. Despite challenging economic conditions, Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited on Monday announced a remarkable milestone by reporting a record-breaking net profit of 3.3 trillion for the 2023 financial year, marking a substantial 27.6% increase from the 2.58 trillion in the corresponding period of 2022. The declaration is the highest profit ever made in NNPC's history and since its transition to a profit-making entity in 2020 after the enactment of the PI into law. So speaking on the company's 2023 results, Omar Jia Isa, Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer of the NNPCL Substantial Profit, noted that the NNPCL achieved a remarkable 23.99 trillion in revenue, showcasing the robust market position and operational efficiency with a gross product of 7.04 trillion and an operating profit of 4.34 trillion. NNPCL achieved a net profit of 3.3 trillion at the end of the 2023 year. These impressive results signify a solid net profit margin of 14% and an operating profit margin of 18%, demonstrating the company's adeptness at converting revenue into substantial profits. Joining us now is Muktar Mohammed, Chief Executive Officer of Finance for Muktar. But Muktar, the results NNPC showed, because we reviewed, is at variance to what was even written at the introduction. You have high level of debts that cannot be explained. The problem, as stated by Tilewa Adebayo yesterday, is that they couldn't even convert those assets into proper revenue. The forward sales that are exorbitant. Still today, yesterday I tried asking NNPC that where are the items they spent 7 billion on their charities that they called orders. They've not answered us. So you have forward sales of about 5 trillion. You have about 4 trillion expending costs on refineries are not working as we speak. That's 9 trillion. And you are celebrating a profit of 3 trillion. A lot of deep pits needs to be blocked. That's why Tilewa Adebayo was saying yesterday that if we probably reconfigure some of these OML and OPL licenses and we take lesser equity there, maybe we could sell off those stakes to be able to get some more capital in and free the NNPC. What say you, sir?
Well, if NNPC has made so much like this, and then we're as a country, which NNPC is a cash cow, first of all, we must know who is the owner of NNPC. So if they have made so much profit, who are the shareholders? By the PIB law, that means the shareholder of NNPC is the Ministry of Petroleum and the Ministry of Finance. So by now, they should be rejoicing that they have so much money. And in turn, this money will find their way into the Federation account. But you must understand that they've already made it known. Remember, there was a memo before the result came out that they have already said that, you know what, we are not going to be paying profit dividend to the federal government for the next, in short, maybe for the next 6 months or to the end of the year. So whatever profit they are declaring now is what we'll call in financial cycle paper profit. I listened to Ruto's analysis also of it. He brought out some very stemming, if you have overhead costs, and the least paid NNPC staff is in about 100 and something million. Now you understand why their portal have to crash. They decide to open it for people to apply. Because if I'm ending up to that amount in I'm not going to jack by anywhere. I'm going to stay here. That is one. When you look at that overhead cost, it's monumental. Then you look at also the charitable thing that you mentioned about. I mean, the only name they brought was No Pen and Pegasin, and then the second one they brought out there was NNPC Foundation. The other ones I saw in a lot of secrecy.
There's some conferences as well that they organized.
Who with the conferences with who and who are those? Remember, there was a particular ministry that went to a conference in London. So they didn't give us detail where these conferences take place. I can assure you, most of these conferences might even have taken place outside the shore of this country. Maybe that's why they are not putting it there. So if I am an investor, I want to invest in Nigeria, and I want to look at Nigerian company who is a cash cow NNPC with this result, I will not. Why? The result is coming late, 8 months after, and your overhead cost is so bloated that we're even expecting more overhead costs, because if you are employing now, you are not shipping out anybody. Yeah. So when you look at that with a long-term future, and it's supposed to be a public company, and if NNPC was listed in the exchange, Today, that means the share will be on offer. Nobody will buy. Because if I declare a profit of 3-point-something trillion, and me as a shareholder, I'm not going to get anything, what's the benefit of investing in that company? Yeah. So I normally say NNPC is like a Tower of Babel. We are just there. We have been looking at it. Some people have called it the Tower of Corruption. There's been so much named to that tower in Abuja. I've never entered. That's the good thing.
Right. So let me come to this Tower of Babel, Tower of Corruption, in your words. One of the things that was highlighted by yesterday's interview with Mr. Tilewa Adebajo was corporate governance. That one of the biggest challenges of NNPCL as an entity is lack of corporate governance. And this would probably address some of the things you've mentioned, including the over-bloated wages, because the board of directors should be able to structure salaries, wages, and ensure that it's fair and competitive across industry standards. What are some of those things that must be put in place? Number one, first of all, would you identify that as one of their key challenges? And number two, as an organization that is attractive to investors, what are some of those corporate governance structures that must be put in place? Number
one, corporate governance, release the result when it's when due. Okay. That's what brings corporate governance. Give it to Malakiari. At least they were able to bring in results. Sometime before now, we didn't even get any result for NNPC. They brought in about a 3 years result at a time. So we couldn't even comprehend what happened last year, what happened the other year. But they promised that they will be up to date in their result. Because that's also, if they are looking at being listed, that's also is part of the listing condition. Corporate governance. Like I said, if they were in the exchange, after your third quarter, after 3 months, they give you a grace of 3 months. After 3 months, if you are not releasing that result, that means every day there is a fine. So if NNPC had been listed in the exchange, he would have been paying fine that maybe it wouldn't be, I think it's about 1 million every day. Unless there is, like the financial sector, they will say, okay, the regulators have not approved, they will write for extension, and that extension can only be given for 1 month. So if that's what corporate governance, that's why we are praying that NNPC should be listed. So maybe that's the only way we can have corporate governance. That is just the main problem with NNPC is not in profitability, it's in corporate governance. Because if it's corporate governance, all those entities that you are now putting in secrecy, you bring it out.
Well, but they have a board currently. They have a chairman of the board, Chief Pius Akinyelu.
Let me give you something about the board. Chair. You said, who is their regulator? I just told you about the stock exchange. If you talk about the bank, who is the bank regulator? Before the bank result will be published, it must be seen by the central bank to look at it. Yeah. If those companies like manufacturing sector, before they'll get into the exchange.
NNPDR is part of their regulators.
Thank you very much. NNPDR. Are they regulator only in importation of product or making sure public are gone, or they are financial regulators? Who are NNPC financial regulators?
NNPDR is part of their regulators.
Exactly. So that means the regulators are not doing their work. They have become part of the system. Because if you go take it, the editors that audit these results have done a good job. I don't know who the auditors are. Maybe if you bring
PwC.
PwC, that is not corporate governance, because they also must have advised the NNPC. Because it's corporate governance. That's also their international organization. They should know. If I have to release my result quarterly, I will release it. So now, what is lacking in NNPC is corporate governance, and because of lack of regulatory supervision. Now, who are the other regulators that have more power? It's the shareholders.
Yes.
So the shareholders, who are the shareholders? Okay. The same Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Petroleum Resources. So they should be saying, okay, why can't we have a dividend in this company? You see shareholder comes and vote against the board and say, no, we sack this board because they are not giving us productivity. But again, you have to ask yourself, is the PIB really in existence?
No.
So if you don't have the PIB bill, then there's no corporate governance already. Because that means there's just a name, nomenclature have changed to NNPC Nigeria Limited. You said something in the report. When you look at those, we're looking at the report. You said Port Harcourt Refinery have not given us a single crude or refined petroleum product.
The 4 refineries are taking close to 4 trillion and they're not giving us any
Remember
money.
That before now, I remember I listened to one of their adverts in this very Arise, where they told us that Port Harcourt Refinery will start producing by December. They came in, they moved it to January. They moved it again.
To March.
March. They moved it again.
Okay.
And the NNPC CEO, Mark Harris, said, this time, I'm not lying. Has he been lying all those while? Corporate governance. Because if that is your cash cow, you look at it, say crude oil sales. Like you said, they didn't put up the overhead cost that comes with crude oil sales. The vessels, the other forward payment, like you said. The reason why we keep on shouting oil theft is that because we are not even producing more. So when they steal it, we feel the pain.
I want to ask you, like, look, you're fantastic. You come on the Global Business Report all the time. We talk stocks. I want to talk about how we can put up the cost of goods sold from the results. Fuel subsidies, PMS under recovery. They flashed it at 3 trillion for fiscal year 2023. But they've also now said that the federal government owes them, I think it's about 7 trillion now in the 12 months up to, I think, July. So if you go from year on year from July to July. And as you've mentioned, if you were a shareholder, you know that dividends are now being paid to take care of fuel subsidies. I've asked you about fuel subsidies in the past, but can you, it is literally, if we're looking at a bank or looking at a manufacturing company or an oil and gas company, subsidies as an expense impacted their financials. It is impacting dividends. Can you please share your thoughts on fuel subsidies in Nigeria?
When it comes to subsidy, or whether it's subsidy, or the recovery, or whatever name you call it, it has been shown in a lot of controversies. And that's why I'm where I stand. Subsidy should go.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear.
Subsidy should go, and I still stand that subsidy should go. And why do I say subsidy should go is because of things like this. Now, subsidy should go, and then why should subsidy go in the petroleum sector? Rutos, if your cash cow, if your salary is where you make your income and everything in your salary will go to luxury living, then how will you grow?
Right.
Our cash cow is not supposed to be where we should be getting subsidy. We should be getting more profit from our cash cow than subsidizing all other areas that are not capital intensive, that can help grow our. Why are we not subsidizing electricity in the manufacturing sector? Why are we always subsidizing only fuel subsidy to a few? Mr. President came in and said subsidy is gone. I celebrated it here. And ordinarily, when subsidy is gone, the people that should benefit from it is NNPC. They are the only sole importer of petroleum products to this country for the past 7 years.
Correct.
So they have monopoly in that sector. But when you look at it, I think we analyze it once. You say subsidy is gone, and you've asked me, say in one word, is subsidy gone or no? And I told you, if I look at what the crude price was at then and what it is now, I'll say there's subsidy somehow. But maybe it's not up to what we used to pay before. That is what even if you look at that result, that's what would have been happening. But again, in terms of the subsidy that NNPC pays, it's not good it's showing a lot of controversies. Now, if you look at that result, they are taxing banks for windfall
tax. Yeah.
Windfall tax. NNPC make a loss, they say, due to exchange rates, about 889 billion.
Yep.
Yeah, close to $1 trillion.
Yeah. That's $1 trillion.
Yeah.
On a policy. And that's why we said subsidy should go. But again, NNPC, if you look at the report before then, where the president have to extend dividend to them by that report, was made to understand that despite the removal of subsidy, the floating of the naira actually has a negative impact on them, and we are seeing it now.
Okay. I want to come in here. You see, my argument has always been, if you don't fix the structural problem, you don't fix Nigeria. And you can't afford to punish the people because of the excesses and the corruption in the system. And I'll give you an instance. Prior to the Aikimokwede committee that was set up under Goodluck Jonathan, the subsidy regime then was that the marketers were bringing in oil. Those were the good old days of Ifeanyi Bar, Capital Oil, big tank farms, they brought in petrol. And how they claimed subsidy then was they would take whatever they brought in, put their LCs forward, and say, okay, we brought in XYZ. But then we blame the marketers. If you read that report by Akim Okwede, it was famous to have said some of them were even bringing water in and calling it fuel. So from there, we said the marketers were the what? The problem. Then we say, oh, we are going to streamline all of this. Let NNPC take over because that's government. We should trust governments. Today, we are blaming NNPC for the same thing, insincerity, that we blame the marketers for. Number one question is, when are we going to fix the structural corruption problem in Nigeria? The second question is, another line item we saw there, NNPC in that report claimed they spent close to ₦1 trillion to ensure security. And crude oil theft have never been this high. Can you help me reconcile the figures?
Okay. For your first question, in Nigeria, we don't have corporate, especially when it comes to federal entity. You don't have corporate structure. You have powerful men. And when powerful men come in, they take charge. And when powerful men go out, they will go back to the status quo. Before now, nobody heard anything about NDLs. And NDLE was like a dead cow.
When
Buba Mara came, you see the kind of arrest. Is it that all of a sudden the drug barons became so many, they were not there before? That is a strong man. Agricultural sectors thrive because we had an Akimi additional that was a minister. Yeah. He came in there, he made that sector so boom, that was a strong man. So any institution that, if you look at NAFDAC, when Dora was there, that was a strong woman. So we don't have structures. We don't have structures. So what we should be doing in corporate Nigeria is to run Nigeria as a corporate entity whereby there is structure. Today, the president of America cannot just come up and do anything just like that because there's a structure there. Yeah. So that's the problem.
Checks and balances.
Checks and balances. There's no checks and balances in Nigeria when it comes to that. Now you're talking about the second question was about
insecurity.
Insecurity.
About close to
but again,
$1 trillion.
Most of the time, so
insecurity. Let me tell you, I might little disagree with you based on the result we have on ground because they say crude oil output has improved to 1.3 million per day from a low of over 700,000 barrels. So you could give it to them that with what they put in insecurity, we are seeing some little results.
Making a headway. Thank you so much for your time with us. We're dissecting this, and I'm sure that even more will come up in the next few days.